This is Paw Print, an animal rescue community, episode 122. I'm Nancy Ree.
And I'm Harold Ree.
Today's guest is Lorrie Shaw of Professional Pet Sitting and her blog, Animals Unfolded.
Music can be a big thing, buffering any background noise. We do find that with dogs, reggae music is soothing as classical music in a shelter setting, so that might be an option. Classical is often used for cats, which is what my preference is.
We're very excited to have Lorrie Shaw back on. Lorrie Shaw was one of our favorite interviews from last year, episode 63, and we talked to her today to get her perspectives on some difficult issues, such as how to positively handle death and dying when it comes to your pet, how to make medical visits a little bit more positive, and finally, Lorrie shares some of her own experiences with her cat, Silver. If you want to learn more about Lorrie Shaw, you can go to her website, lorrieshaw.com, or go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com.
I have spent a lot of time deep diving into a lot of topics, especially animal hospice. First half of 2016, hospicing my sweet old boy Silver, who had been successfully treated for cancer in 2015, but had later died from complications of chronic kidney disease at the age of 19. And I was very focused on that. And then, really during that time, I was able to kind of dive more into a lot of Con Ed in terms of animal behavior and hospice and animal health and things like that. So I really wanted to kind of hone my skills because I interact with pets in such a really personal way, especially in working with a lot of hospice cases, dogs and cats, and their families. So it's been a year of learning.
When you're doing all this continuing education, what would you say are the things that really catch your eye when signing up for additional education?
I've derived from my own experience, things that I see in my daily work, paying attention to things on social media, trends that are coming up. One of the things that I was really excited about, and I should preface this by saying that the model for animal hospice is very much based on the human hospice model. So one of the things that I was able to participate in late last year was an end-of-life doula workshop here in Ann Arbor that was presented by the Lifespan Doula Association. So I am on my way to becoming certified as an end-of-life doula for humans. But my main focus is to really take that education and focus it on pets and their families that I work with. So that was a really interesting thing. And, there are a lot of things that go along with this topic. And I was lucky enough to be able to take part in a workshop that was facilitated by Debbie Jacobs of Fearful Dogs that was held in New Orleans. And the topic was living with fearful dogs. But what we see a lot of times is that pets that are in their later stages of life, whether it's their senior years or their end of life wise, they can be kind of apprehensive and fearful about being approached and interacted with because they need so much more care, tending. They're being examined more often by their veterinarians, and they often need more tests. They need to be medicated more often. They may need injections and things of that nature more often. So learning and understanding how to kind of interact with them in a more safe way for both of us, in a more humane way, is really important for me.
We're talking to Lorrie Shaw. What would be maybe some of the initial steps that you would walk them through?
If I have a client who I'm doing a meet and greet for, who in some cases this happens a lot, they're not really aware of what's going on. And I might notice that there are either some changes, or I may be presented with a potential client who I notice is having some serious trouble. And first thing that I'll tell them is they need to schedule an appointment with their vet, ideally a hospice vet. Most of those folks are doing house calls, so they can come in and talk to the family and get a really good handle on what's going on. And what's really nice is that they can work cooperatively with their primary vet. So a lot of times I kind of act as a bridge between the family and their primary vet. In a lot of cases, unfortunately, they don't have a primary vet anymore because they don't feel comfortable with them, or that may be why their pet hasn't had veterinary care for a while and has gotten into this stage. So I really do my best to act as a bridge and just to try to connect the two and to keep that kind of communication going.
So when you say you might see a sign or something, some change in the animal, and maybe the regular human owner that doesn't necessarily see that, can you give us examples of some changes that you've witnessed?
It really depends on how well I know the pet. In that case, if I'm seeing significant weight loss, if I'm seeing signs of pain, which can be a little vague at times, trouble getting around. Something really important to keep in mind is that hospice is not so much always in terms of thinking that it's the end of life. Hospice can take a really long time, and we can manage pets' conditions in that way with that mindset of giving them that extra care, that extra palliation, if we're really consciously aware of all these changes and thinking in terms of how this is going to lead to an endpoint, but at the same time making it comfortable. So when I'm working with a client that I'm familiar with, I can make suggestions right off the bat. It may be that their appetite isn't as strong. If I'm seeing weight loss, they might say, yeah, they don't eat as much. And I always preface it by saying you should always talk to your vet first. Let's get an appointment with the vet. Let's get them in to see why that's happening, because there are a lot of reasons why pets are not eating as much. And they may be eating enough. It's just that they're not able to get all the nutrient because of age-related stuff or illness. So if there is a client that I'm meeting for the first time, I have to say that there have been several cases that I have been presented with where it's very obvious the pet is either in end of life or that they are experiencing some great distress. So one thing I always try to kind of differentiate is that pets don't need to suffer. We have a lot of things at our disposal that we can do that are easy and inexpensive, that are not difficult to do for either the pet or the human, that can make them comfortable. So if I'm seeing an animal that's in distress, we can try to alleviate that. And seeing the client some very pointed questions about the pet's lifestyle. And I always try to do this so I can get a handle on things. Because if it's one thing that I know, a lot of pet owners and families tend to minimize what might be going on. So when I do see the pet for the first time, I can pretty much tell when something is. It might be that they're drooling excessively, or they have some really bad mouth odor, or their coat is looking really, really bad. They're having trouble getting around. And I also at that time make a lot of suggestions to help make the home more safe for the pet. That's something that is really important for people to understand, that it's not just for the safety of the pet, but it's for the safety of the humans that are helping to handle the pet as well. Because if a pet falls, you need to help them up. You need to know how to do this properly without pushing them to a point where they feel like they need to bite or snap at you. And it can be really difficult for people. I always try to give them empowerment to be able to have a safe home. And that might mean having area rugs down is a big thing, nice orthopedic beds, elevating dog dishes, things of that nature. So it's a lot of little simple things that can be done. And of course, I always tell them, as you're doing all this, talk to your vet closely. And if you don't really like your vet or you don't feel comfortable, please find another one that you do. I have suggestions for that always, but it's always ultimately the pet owner's decision as who they feel comfortable with.
How do you balance the reality that, hey, maybe your dog or cat or other pet may not have that long to live, with sort of that, positive mindset, like, hey, you can fight this, you can really get through this situation. And, obviously in some cases, dogs and cats can live maybe a little longer than originally expected. So how do you balance that optimism with maybe the reality?
That's one of the things that I do, especially when I'm doing meet and greets with clients. And I should say that I also get a lot of referrals from local vets who do hospice work and palliative care, because I do have a lot of experience and knowledge in this. So one of the first things that I do when I walk in to a client's home, and after talking on the phone to them and getting some history and some background and stuff, and having a kind of a solid base to kind of go from, and try to get a feel for what's going on, I try to get to know what's going on with everybody. because it's not just about the pet, it's also about the family. In a lot of cases, what I find is that when a pet is not doing well, it may be because they're not kind of getting the that kind of attention that they need day to day, because there are other things going on in the family. So I try to take in the entire picture. And when I walk in and I meet everybody, I immediately take the initiative to go sit on the floor. Say if it's a dog, I go sit on the floor, and usually, or I'll sit next to the dog's bed if they're having a lot of trouble getting around. But most of the time, those pets will come right up to me, and they start interacting with me. And the one thing I notice is that families immediately relax. They see that the pet is acting like who they are. They may be different than they were 6 months ago, but they are still very much alive. They have things that they like. They have things they're interested in. I'll pick up one of their toys and I'll play a little bit. If it's a kid and a dog, they'll sit on my lap. And as we talk and go over the case history and go over the pet's needs, because I have extensive files that I keep on all of my charges, I notice the entire room just starts to shift and there's more positivity. And in a piece that I had written back in the wintertime, I always recommend if you have a dog who's not doing that great and still likes to do things, it might not be a bad idea to bring either a trainer or a behaviorist in to help you figure out what are those things that we can do so the pet can have fun and get the most out of their life, and so that you can interact with them in that way. And the one question I always ask people is, what do they like to do? Mm-hmm. And people immediately jump up and they'll grab a toy, they'll grab a special food dispenser or whatever, or they'll say, oh, they love, when they see this leash, they know they're going to go out and go for a walk. And that kind of brings back that spark for people and that sense of normalcy. And that sense of normalcy, whether you're talking about human hospice or animal hospice, it is so vital. So that's one of the things that I really try to establish.
What would be a typical schedule? Is it several times a month? Is it more often than that? Is it less often than that?
Well, it really depends on the pet and depends on the family's lifestyle. So, a lot of people work really long hours. And even if they work an 8-hour shift, it's still a long time for a pet to be on their own. And, with all the technology we have today with cameras and things that we can do to see and peek in on what's going on at home, it's not the same as being there. So say for a dog, maybe who has osteosarcoma, a type of bone cancer, they might need a visit every day, just midday, to get them outside and to check their pain level and see, kind of what I see is going on. Maybe they might need a dose of medication. Maybe they need some food with that. So that might be once a day, it might be a couple of times a day. And with cats, depending on what kind of, supportive therapy that they're getting, whether it's fluids, sometimes they need to eat more often because their appetite is waning. So it can go anywhere from once a day to several times a day. And that does increase as time goes on because the level of care needs to match that. So I have, for example, I've got one client right now who doesn't have any specific problems. She has some GI issues that are very normal for a dog her age. She's 15. So I go over once a day during the weekday hours when her family is at work. And I let her out, hang out with her outside, let her stretch her legs. If she needs to have a bowel movement, she can do that, just getting all the basics covered. And then she can go back to sleep after a really light meal. She can get her meds and she can go right back to sleep. So it really does give people some peace of mind. They get a video update every time so they can kind of see what's going on. And one of the things I try to do too with those video updates is if something is going on, they can see what it is. And they can take that to say, this is what's happening now. What does it mean?
Okay.
So yeah, it just really gives people a lot of peace of mind. So, as a pet gets closer and closer towards their end, those visits might increase considerably. But that does give people a chance to plan ahead too with their own employment. Yeah, it's a really special time.
Over the years, since you've been doing hospice, how would you say you've changed in your approach to hospice?
Boy, it's really interesting. So the field of hospice with animal care has changed quite a bit. What I've learned is that it's so much more than just dealing with the pets and the stuff that arises, all the medical stuff and all the pain management that we need to address and all the GI issues and things of that nature. It's more even so about the humans and the human factor because of the human-animal bond. And really, at the end of the day, establishing and maintaining that human-animal bond for people is that single thread that is so important. So this has been one of the reasons why I've done so much Con Ed in this area, is that navigating those situations with families can be very complicated. And the more people in the family just increases the complexity of it. And there are lots of hospice vets out there who facilitate trainings just in that area. It has nothing to do with palliating pain or addressing digestive problems. It's how do we keep those lines of communication open, not only between the caregivers and the families, within the families, with the families, with the vets. And it's really opened up a whole new world for me. It's made me reflect on my own experiences with my own pets when they had passed and the times before that, learning so much more about anticipatory grief and how it has a lingering effect on people, the grief that you feel not only before, but during and after, because they're so different. And one of the things that I find really important too is I'm mentoring fellow pet sitters. I'm seeing that that's a real problem when there's this lack of communication between not only a caregiver and the family, it might be between members of the family who are not seeing eye to eye. And navigating those situations can be really difficult. You don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to seem insensitive. And sometimes people just aren't ready to deal with something. And it's all about knowing when that happens, when to step back and to just give it a little time. It's very interesting, and it can be a minefield sometimes, but with the training that I've had, I really feel confident in helping to be a better partner in that area.
We're talking to Lorrie Shaw. She runs professional pet sitting, and she's also a writer with her own blog, Animals Unfolded. Let's see here. Wow. So it's powerful because I would imagine, we're all going to run into that situation. We have a dog or cat or other pet, and we will eventually have to deal with end-of-life issues. Mm-hmm. What are things that we as humans, because it sounds like that's really an important thing that you've that you've observed over time. Mm-hmm. What are things we as humans can do to improve the lives of our pets, maybe from our own attitudes and our own lifestyle?
Well, I think it's interesting. One thing that I know is that we have to get more comfortable with death. It's not going to escape us in any way, shape, or form. We're all going to meet it ourselves. We're all going to meet it with our loved ones. If we can improve our relationship that way with death, and that's why I work so hard in getting a lot of education in human hospice. In fact, I'm going to be taking part in an online workshop on Tuesday with the Zen Hospice Project that hopefully will help me be a better caregiver. When I notice that a lot of people have some unfinished things in other parts of their life that might affect the way that they see how their pet's doing, first of all. So being sensitive to that's really important for me, because if their limbic brain is taking over, if you've ever heard that concept of the elephant and the rider, there's only so much bandwidth we have for really difficult stuff. Mm-hmm. So my being sensitive to that kind of thing is really important first and foremost as an outsider coming into a family. Then I can start to be a bit more honest about what's going on that I see. And like I always say, it's always important for families to talk to their veterinarians about what's going on, because I can't do things that they can do. I can't help the family make decisions about things the way that they can. So I can take the information that I see, whether it's the animal's condition, maybe the way that they are eating, things like that. But the main part is to try to get to that early. When you start to notice problems, it's not going to go away. It's only going to ramp up and get worse. And the one thing that we are so trying to stress, not only in animal hospice, but human hospice, is the idea that starting palliative care earlier actually has better outcomes in the end.
Okay.
Animals and humans can both live a more comfortable and they can get most out of life if that's the case. So I always try to stress implementing strategies to help pets be more comfortable for inflammation that they're having, if they're having issues getting around. Maybe adding some things to their medication regimen to help them digest food better, to minimize maybe some stomach acid they're experiencing or chronic nausea. Because when you let those things go, the condition of the pet just rapidly declines.
Right.
And then it's really difficult for people to cope with that too in the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you had to care for your cat Silver in the past year. What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about trying to apply all your knowledge to a very personal situation?
Yeah, that's it's really interesting because being on the other side of the fence is a very different thing. You're making the decisions. You're the one who's got to try to, gauge what's going on and dialogue with your vet and be honest with yourself. And it's a very difficult thing to do. And I have to say that Silver really made it easy. He was, as most animals are, he was a great communicator. I'm not a big fan of saying that we fight to live, we fight to stay alive. If it's one thing that I know, pets just know how to pick up and move on. They know how to adapt. And there was a time when he could no longer adapt to what was going on. He was getting a lot of supportive care in the way of fluids and special diet and a regimen that suited his needs, which was a big thing. And the one thing that it really did help me remember is that it's difficult to do hospice care for a family. It takes time. It takes being on schedule. You have to be willing to deviate from that schedule because sometimes pets aren't so ready to eat when you need to feed them. They are not ready to take their medication when they need to. They're just not feeling it that day. It really does teach you a lot more patience, not only with the pet, but for yourself. And when it gets to a point that you see that there are bigger decisions that need to be made, you get more comfortable with it. I got incredibly good after hospicing 2 pets of getting very comfortable with making decisions that I could not change once I made them and being honest with myself. And it was a very freeing kind of concept for me, but it also made me realize that not everybody gets there quite as fast. They get there at different speeds. So myself to try to give people resources, give them the space and the right dialogue to fit the situation, because it's not one size fits all. Everybody has a different relationship with their pet. And I can look back on my own experience and say, yep, I know I was being kind of resistant there. Why was I doing that? Well, because I was.
Okay.
And just keeping that in mind as I talk to other families.
Well, so I'm thinking, the more I'm speaking to you, the more I'm thinking myself, right? That I think I'll just speak to myself that sometimes when we're trying to give, let's say, one of our dogs medicine, and to me, it's sort of like, I know it's good for you, so you're just going to take this medicine. But I think from what you're saying, it's a little bit more like, not necessarily. In fact, that can even be maybe a little bit too over the top. Sometimes you have to listen or look for those cues and clues from your dog, especially when it comes to end of life situation. That this doesn't even apply to our pets, right? This can apply to our children or our parents or whatever. That sometimes we just take this assumption that we just know more than you, so why don't you just do it? It's just so logical. Yep. Can you speak to a little bit about that? Because I think even for me, I'm feeling like, maybe I need to change my mindset around health issues.
Right, because, especially when you talk to vets, especially in a clinical setting, they're there to cure. They're there to help. And there are ways that they can do that. And it's very cut and dry, in their mind, this is what you do. But then there's also that thing that needs to be there to say, but how are we going to accomplish this? Because it's really difficult, especially when you're dealing with pets. You want to be able to help them. And as a caregiver, I can tell you, with as much experience as I have, I know how to do things. But I also have to remember that that creature I'm taking care of might not be ready for me to take care of them today. Sometimes they just need to be left alone. So it all comes down to picking your battles. You know, it's like you said, it's like, oh, I know better. This is going to help you. Why don't you just do it? Well, because they don't want to right now. They might be in a lot of pain that day. They might have some nausea. They might just be really tired. And you can just, it's always good just to take a step back and go, why is this happening? Is it nothing? Is it just a little glitch today? Okay, so we're just going to give this half an hour. Maybe we'll come back to it and see if we can do it again. If not, we'll just come back to it later. And it's interesting that it not only teaches you patience with them, but with yourself.
Right.
Because sometimes we just try a little too hard.
Turning the page a little bit, although it's very related, I know you are becoming more and more a big fan of the fear-free movement. Outside of, let's say, hospice, can you maybe speak to a little bit about, who founded the fear-free movement? Why is there such thing as fear-free movement?
Yeah, it's really fascinating. So this is a philosophy that I've been implementing for the longest time, and really because I worked with hospice dogs and cats, that really did kind of bring it to the forefront for me. But last year, the Fear-Free Pets initiative was set forth by Dr. Marty Becker, who I was very grateful to meet. In late April, I had flown out to Arizona to do a symposia with the Fear-Free Pets group. And the thing is, the philosophy of the organization is to prevent, if we can, when pets are young, to prevent the fear and anxiety and the stress that happens with our companion animals when they are put in situations where, say, we need to help them, where it could be a medication, it could be a vet exam, it could be just a daily interaction, something as simple as clipping their nails. So if we can find ways and implement strategies that can sensitize them in a way with a positive association rather than pain or apprehension or what is this? Why are you coming at me with that needle? We can mitigate a lot of problems in the future. We can lay this positive groundwork. For pets that already have issues, which is pretty common, especially when you go to the vet, there are things that veterinary staff can do to help mitigate that, to help counter-condition a pet to maybe being more receptive then to getting their nails clipped or getting an injection or being examined. And it's very difficult. If you're not feeling well and you're at the vet, you're already kind of at a disadvantage. And if you're already fearful on top of that, that's just going to compound the problem. So implementing strategies that can get around those issues and to create as positive an environment and give animals choice about how they're interacted with. That's really the core of the Fear-Free Pets movement. And what I'm really excited to say is that they are going to actually create criteria for pet sitters and shelter workers and things of that nature. So it's a more encompassed approach because right now it's really kind of centered around the veterinary experience. So.
Yeah. Does a fear-free experience, does it start like when you leave the house and get into the car, or does it start more when you arrive at the veterinary office? I mean, where does this sort of fear-free experience begin?
It begins at home.
Okay. It
really does. You pegged it right there. And that's one of the things that the facilitators, who also include Debbie Miller, Steve Dale was also there. That's the core, is starting it at home, educating families about what it is and identifying what is it about this experience that is going to set your pet off, identifying what those triggers are. So when you start at home, one of the things I do, of course, in my work is I will accompany pets to the vet. So this is why this kind of thing is so important to me, because I want other people to do the kinds of things that we're already doing to make pets comfortable. So say if I'm taking a cat to the vet car rides to begin with, so going to the vet is not going to make it any more fun. So some of the things that we implement, we have a cat carrier. Usually I always try to use the ones that are at my clients' houses because the cats are comfortable with that. So I'll have a comfortable towel that they like, that they feel comfortable with in their little enclosure. I'll spray the inside with Feliway, which is a pheromone-based spray that also comes in a diffuser, which I highly recommend. And then I'll put a towel that's been sprayed with Feliway over the crate, over the carrier, and take that in, covering it, and then I get into the car, try to keep the car ride as pleasant as possible. Music can be a big thing, kind of buffering any background noise. We do find that with dogs, reggae music is soothing as classical music in a shelter setting. So that might be an option. Classical is often used for cats, which is what my preference is. Trying to keep them stress-free about the whole situation, minimizing it as much as we can, and using food. I always say food makes friends. So that's used quite a bit in the fear-free, the mindset. And then as you're at the vet's office, safe handling techniques, not coming right at the cat, getting them out of the crate. There are things that we can do to maybe examine them right inside their crate. So it's all about keeping it as positive as we can so that we don't have these problems, and it keeps both parties safe.
I love the reggae music part. That part is the best. So
it was really, we actually talked about that at the symposia. So it was a really interesting asset to add to my arsenal of things.
There you go. Bob Marley's greatest
Yes.
hits gets a new life with the Fear Free movement. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What else? So when you get to the veterinary office, let's say you've tried all this, right? Their favorite blanket, their favorite carrier, their favorite treats, their favorite music. They get to the veterinary office and then they still just freak out. What would be your decision at that point?
It's all about the veterinary staff knowing how to interact with the pet appropriately. And there are a lot of vet practices that are fear-free certified. So if your pet does have issues like that, I do recommend that you find one in your area. You can go to the Fear-Free Pets website and locate one there. I believe there's over 13,000 vet professionals that are certified now, and that number is going to be increasing greatly. But a lot of the vet's offices have certain rooms that are designed for dogs they're especially having a difficult time. Same thing with cats. In fact, there is one vet's office area that is really fantastic at it, Compassionate Care Animal Hospital. They do just that kind of thing. One of the things that we talked about at the symposium is different nutraceuticals that can be used. Aside from the Adaptil pheromone spray for dogs, which is really helpful, and the Feliway pheromone products, there's a few nutraceuticals. One is called Zylkene, which can help reduce the anxiety in pets. It's good for both cats and dogs. It's from the Vetoquinol company, and it is, like I said, a nutraceutical, so there's no sedation with it. And it can be used also for fireworks.
And 4th of July is coming up, right?
Yep, very important. In fact, that's going to be my next piece, is talking about these types of things, because it is such a problem. But the nice thing about this is that it's not something you can do it before an event, whether it's like a move or maybe a new baby's coming into the house, things like that. There's a lot of really exciting things that are on the market that are available. They are available from a vet only by prescription. And I always say, talk to your vet about stuff like that, because we sometimes don't know what our pets' histories are before they come to us. So it can be kind of hard to detect, when a situation arises, how they might handle themselves at the vet. And we don't want anybody to have an injury or to have a bad experience. So yeah, Zylkene, which is a really exciting thing. And there's other nutraceuticals that are also available. So I find it really exciting, because anything that we can do to help pets be more comfortable is A-okay with me.
We're talking to Lorrie Shaw of Professional Pet Sitting and Animals Unfolded, which is her blog. We have a few minutes left. The past year, from all the things you've learned, or the things you've taught me, maybe more specifically, what I'm getting a sense from you is that we need to offer our dogs, cats, and other pets choices. In other words, we need to let them, it may sound strange, right? But we actually need to allow them to be a part of the decision-making process.
Yep.
And it's like, I don't know why. It's like, before meeting you, I just never thought of it that way. But after speaking to you, it just makes more sense. What else can we do to allow our dogs and cats more choices? Well,
I think, first of all, just paying attention to them, just observing them, seeing what it is that they prefer, what they don't prefer. Some animals can be kind of, and for lack of a better word, moody. They change a lot. Some are more to even keel every day. And those things really change a lot with age. That's one of the things I try to stress with my families that I deal with is that, so-and-so did act that way a year ago, but now things are different. It can be because they might be in more pain with arthritis. They're more apprehensive about doing things. Their age affects the way, how much energy they have. Maybe they don't want to go out and play. Maybe they don't want to lay in a certain room. Maybe they prefer to lay in the dining room in the middle of the day because that's where the sun is, and they like the way that it feels. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what I want people to understand, is that animals are great communicators. And if we're just paying attention, we can use that to our advantage, because we'll have more cooperation from them to be able to help them better in the end. Because we really ultimately need their cooperation to help them. And that's, I think, what it all boils down to. All of this just ties in so closely with all the work that I do, especially with senior and geriatric and hospice pets. And those three categories are all very different. It doesn't matter if it's a dog or a cat. So, during these times, pets are just being handled more often, and they're being interacted with a lot more. So they need more choice to be able to do that. And, and to be honest, people are different at those ages too with their pets, and being very conscious of how they see their pets and how they're choosing to interact with them is a part of the equation too. So it can be really tough to try to navigate these situations if there's not good communication and if we're not honoring what the pets want, because ultimately that is what we need to do, is to follow their lead. And if they're not able to do that for themselves, we need to make sometimes some really tough decisions. But, my goal ultimately is just to not only empower myself and my colleagues and the public at large, but to empower families and the pets, and to advocate for all parties. Because at the end of the day, I know I keep saying this, it all comes down to making sure that human-animal bond is where it needs to be. Because quite often towards the end of life stages, or even if there's behavior issues with a pet that's younger, if the animal-human bond is degraded in any way, that can really lead to much bigger problems. And it's just something that that's kind of at the core of all that I do.
Okay. How do folks find you?
I'm all over the place here. So I can be found most often on my Facebook page, and that is facebook.com/PPSLorrie, PPSLORRIE. I'm on Twitter almost daily. It's at PSA2. I'm also on my blog very often. I write usually twice a month, and that's lorrieshaw.blogspot.com. And of course, people are always welcome to contact me by email, and that is ppsa2mi@gmail.com, or they can also, shoot me a phone call. I can always be reached at any of those online sites, and there's a call button on there so that people can just get in touch with me right away.
We only just really touched the surface. Anything else that you want to say to finish off this episode?
Well, I want pet owners to feel as empowered as they can. And I have to say that always comes down to communication. So get comfortable with what's going on, whatever it is in your household with your pets, and talk to each other, talk to the others in the family. Not everybody sees things eye to eye, and they don't see the same thing that you do all the time. And then take that communication, those skills that you've got, and take them and talk to your vet, because they are your partner in keeping your pet healthy, getting them healthier, and helping them navigate any difficult situation.
I hear just so many themes. It's everything from be a better listener, be a better observer, offer your animals choices, your health reflects their health. I mean, just so many amazing themes, which really are not only just themes for your animals, but really themes for your life, right?
Exactly. It's a really all-encompassing kind of thing. And I have to say, one of I think the most rewarding experiences that I'm going to have this year is be going to California to participate in a class where I'll be certified to be a pet loss and grief companioning person. So I'll be certified in that. And that, I think, it not only lays the groundwork for loss that has already happened or very fresh, but in the future. And that can help bolster people to have even healthier relationships with pets that are in their future.
We want to say thank you to Lorrie Shaw for sharing her knowledge. If you want to learn more about Lorrie, go to our show notes at thisisPawprint.com. You can also see a photo of Lorrie and her cat, Silver. If you'd like to listen to more episodes of Paw Print, you can find us on your favorite podcast app, such as Apple Podcasts, also known as iTunes, SoundCloud, or Overcast, an app for iPhones. Search for Paw Print Animal Rescue and make sure to hit the subscribe button to get the latest episodes immediately. If you'd like to meet me or Nancy on social media, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, you can find us by searching for This is Paw Print, all one word. We just want to say thank you to all of you for sharing Paw Print with your friends and family. We're already at 122 episodes, and we couldn't have done it without your support. So thank you. And remember, you spread a positive message of love and peace by saving an animal. Have a great day, everyone, and see you next time on Paw Print.
Paw Print is a production of EVER Education.
You get it!